Oh, hello. Didn't see you come in here. I am going to make a little review of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I just finished it on Nintendo Switch, and I wanted to just kind of research a little bit of the development history and offer an opinion on gameplay and stuff like that. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Um, As far as development history, this is developed by Nintendo's Entertainment Planning and Development Division. This actually formed from the consolidation of its Entertainment Analysis and Development Division and the Software Planning and Development Division, and this occurred in September of 2015. The Nintendo Entertainment and Analysis Division developed Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Majora's Mask, and Ocarina of Time. So they definitely have some experience and know what Zelda, sort of what people like about Zelda. So this merger was actually pretty good. Even though it's been a consistent division that's been developing Zelda, the artist, director, and writer have never worked on a Zelda before. I'm going to butcher their names, so I'll try to pronounce that. The artist was Satoru Takizawa. The writer was Akihito Toda, and director was Hideo Fujibayashi. All of them never worked on Legend of Zelda before, but there isn't a lot of consistency in artists, writers, and directors on Legend of Zelda. I went back and actually looked, and I think between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, actually no, it was Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, where some of the artist was the same and worked on it and everything. But it wasn't just him, so there isn't really a big consistency, and they've delivered every time. There's never been like a horrible one. Maybe Triforce Heroes, but let's just pretend that one doesn't exist. But anyway, so some more development history. Prior to actually creating the final game, and then. Sorry about that. Prior to creating the final game, a 2D proof of concept prototype was actually developed to experiment with the new physics and chemistry based puzzles. There's a lot in Breath of the Wild where you're rotating the divine beasts, which you are sort of solving. They're like temples in Ocarina of Time, and when you rotate them, it changes the whole landscape. It's sort of trying to think of what tempo it would be like in Ocarina of Time, because that's probably my favorite one. Probably be similar to the water temple, just how things develop and change with different levels of water, and you unlock new things, new areas. However, it's not as hard as the water temple, and it's not nearly as frustrating. The Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development team is also responsible for developing the Twilight Princess HD, not the original Twilight Princess. That was Nintendo Entertainment and Analysis Division. They made Triforce Heroes, Fire Emblem Heroes. I haven't yet to play Fire Emblem Heroes, but if it's like the other Fire Emblem games, I won't be disappointed. I love Awakening. I love Path of Radiance. They're doing Mario Kart 8, Mario Odyssey, and so far an untitled Animal Crossing game that's listed on their Wikipedia that is going to launch for iOS and Android. I'll put a little screenshot and show you guys. This game was actually originally developed with touchscreen controls, which I thought would have been weird. I'm glad they were actually scrapped, because the developers thought they distracted from the main screen, which I support that decision 100%. I've never been a fan of touchscreen controls, and I don't think I ever will be, especially after playing some titles on PlayStation Vita. I guess on the 3DS I don't mind them as much, but they seem supplemental on the 3DS, not main. The producer Eiji Onuma, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher some names. At E3 2014 said he wanted to alter the norms of Zelda by reforming dungeons and puzzle solving. And if you go and take a look at, gosh, I think every Legend of Zelda before this, especially Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, you can tell the same approach to puzzle solving in dungeons definitely not used. It's changed dramatically. which you can either like or dislike. I don't know. I don't want to say my opinion on that. And also, an interesting fact during the development history is, according to canon, Link is actually left-handed. You can actually go back and look at old pictures of Ocarina of Time, and he has his sword in his left hand, shield in his right, and in, uh, in screenshots of Breath of the Wild, and when you're playing Breath of the Wild, he holds his sword in his right hand. It's kind of interesting why they switched it, but apparently they switched it to match the gamepad's control scheme on the little Wii U, which is kind of dumb because it's multi-platform. But I don't know. I don't really care either way. IG Animal took inspiration for the art direction from gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. I'm going to put up some samples of gouache art, as well as en plein air, which is outdoor art, and it's painting outdoors and stuff like that. I'm posting some shots just from Google, and I could definitely see where he took inspiration from this art after googling and looking at it. But what's interesting is Monolith Soft, who's developed some of my favorite games, actually. I didn't know they had done Xenosaga, but I knew they did Xenoblade Chronicles. So anyway, they're responsible for Xenosaga, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. Interesting. They actually assisted a lot with the topology design, which if you look at... I hear a cat near me. Okay, there's a cat right behind me. If you look at some of the landscape in Xenoblade Chronicles, even if you don't like JRPGs, the landscape looks super fun. And the only reason I haven't played that game yet is because I don't want to. I don't want to pay $40 because it's been $40 since launch, and I'm just a patient gamer and I wait for the sales so I can. And I don't really play what's new and out there. Breath of the Wild is probably the most recent thing I've played in the last, I don't know, like 6 to 8 months. Anyway, let's just go ahead and move on to story. So I'm going to go back 100 years because this kind of takes place after the 100 years and awakening of Link. But 100 years ago, Calamity Ganon appears beneath the Hyrule Castle. He takes control of the Guardians and Divine Beasts, which Hyrule developed as a defense against Ganon and evil and malice, and he actually turned them against Hyrule. Zelda and Link, which I don't know if you know this, I'm going to assume everybody does, but I'm going to say it anyway. Link is Zelda's sworn knight, and they both escape and Hyrule Castle as it's being taken control of, and then they get surrounded in Hateno Fort, and the village Hateno is actually a village in Breath of the Wild. You can explore it, but once they're surrounded at Hateno Fort, this is actually kind of poetic. I really liked looking into the background story. Link makes his final sacrifice, and then he just protects Zelda by standing in front of a guardian. And he's not even able to wield his Master Sword. He's just that exhausted. He suffered a wound, a mortal wound, back at Hyrule Castle, and then he just pretty much, well, there's his last stand, and then Zelda awakens her powers, and she actually deactivates all the surrounding guardians. So it's not like he gets a final blast that kills him. He just dies from a mortal wound, which was suffered back at Hyrule Castle, and he dies in her arms. Yada yada yada. Super poetic. Zelda is able to get. Oh, there's a cat on me now. Zelda is able to seal Ganon inside of Hyrule Castle for 100 years, and then just 100 years later, Link awakens with amnesia inside the Shrine of Resurrection. He doesn't know. In fact, actually, a big part of the game is discovering memories in these locations. I did not do that. I'm going to go back and do it, even though I've already completed the game, just because you can kind of just pick up where you left off before you fight the last boss, which is kind of nice. Hey, kitty. So just a little bit of an overview on gameplay. It's really fun. I would highly recommend it to anybody that enjoys Skyrim. Anybody that enjoys action RPGs, exploration, And it's really rewarding to explore this world. It's 12 times bigger than Twilight Princess, and it's definitely not nearly as linear. I read in the Wikipedia how the legend goes with Link and how he conquers the divine beast, and I definitely didn't do it in that order. I did it a different order, which is kind of nice. There isn't really much of an introduction into the world. Just a few words are said in the beginning of the game, and what else? Yeah, you sort of just left off and you talk to an old man, start discovering things. I remember I had to Google how to figure out cooking. That's how little of guidance is given to you. So there isn't a huge tutorial like press A, which I'm actually kind of a fan of. I like to figure things out on my own, but just the cooking thing would have been nice to know. If you're going to say one thing, just add how to cook right away, because it's not really intuitive for me. Yeah, anyways, you hunt and cook ingredients to increase survivability in the wild. There's all kinds of different buffs you can get. You can increase your hearts. You can increase your attack, defense, cold, hot resistance, electric resistance, I guess I kind of already said that. I think that's it. You can increase stealth too. Yeah. Anyway, there's a ton of stuff to do in this. You can explore shrines, collect spirit orbs. The way you get more heart containers in this one is by completing the temples, aka divine beasts, or you can collect spirit orbs, which is a little bit different from traditional games where you collected pieces of heart and then 4 pieces of heart added an additional heart. I'm not sure about Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, but Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask definitely had that. You can complete side quests, memories. One of my favorite ways they did this is they didn't really they made a navigation system, but it wasn't like just go to this point and do this. They were able to implement side quests and main quests, and they left a lot to where you still got to kind of figure out where to go. I remember there was this Zora the main quest where you have to find May, who was one of the Zora's wives, and he just tells you that she was washed down the river from Zora's River to potentially Lake Hylia by the divine beast, I think it's Van Ruda, and once he was overtaken by some Ganon magic, and when I was looking for her, I wasn't given a marker to where to go and stuff like that. I had to go and actually explore this large area, which Zora's River to Lake Hyrule is a big area. I did kind of make an assumption in the way he was talking, and discovered that, yeah, she's at Lake Hylia. Spoiler alert, not really a big spoiler, because, I mean, when you find May, she doesn't even give you anything good anyway. So if you're mad at me for spoiling that, that was a silly quest. I actually, I'm gonna be honest, I looked it up on Google because after I first explored Lake Hylia, I didn't see her at all. And then when I went up the river all the way to Zora's River, I still didn't see her. So, and then I Googled it and I found out she was on this tiny island that I overlooked, and she wasn't very visible from how far I was. So I got way off track. Anyway, there's shield surfing, which was awesome. You can just surf on shields, as well as champion abilities. So, like, every time you beat a divine beast, you get a champion ability from the associated race's hero. With Gorons, you get Daruk. I don't remember all their names, so I'm just going to kind of say them as I go. With Gorons, you get Daruk. Daruk's shield, which kind of reflects attacks back, which is really helpful when you're fighting those like world mini bosses that are actually really strong and honestly a lot harder than the divine beast bosses, which is kind of weird. Naru's gift, which resurrects you with more hearts if you die, which is awesome. That was the first champion ability I got, and I was very happy with it because I died a lot in the beginning. Uruboza's Fury, I think, which is an electric attack that's released when you charge your attack. It's really cool. And then, man, why am I drawing a blank on it? Rivali's, I'm going to say Rivali's Gale. I don't know if that was his real name. Yeah, it is Rivali's Gale. Okay. Which creates an updraft, so you can like use a paraglider to travel upward, and then you can glide down. And the paraglider is a huge part of this game, and it's super fun to use every time. You never like, oh man, no, I have to use a paraglider. The landscape is so boring. No, it's actually it's interesting the whole time. Every time I use a paraglider, I found myself like just admiring the landscape and figuring out where I want to land. It's a very successful tool throughout the Breath of the Wild that adds a lot of enjoyment to the experience while you're playing on it. While you're playing it. As far as the atmosphere in the game, you play over a large landscape of Hyrule, which if you're watching this review, you already know. You find towers and you map regions to your Sheikah slate when you summit these towers. I saw this as taking a page from Assassin's Creed's book, because I remember Assassin's Creed had this system before Zelda, and Zelda sort of took this from Assassin's Creed. I don't know the original game that came up with this mechanic. It's cool though. I like doing it this way. It was one of my favorite parts of Assassin's Creed too. There's about 14 world mini bosses, and you get really good rewards for just exploring this region. And they're not super hard to find. I found 3 of them actually by accident, and I fight a couple of them in the video. I'm gonna kind of play to the background. I'm doing this all voice, and I'm just kind of recording a video and just playing it. If you didn't know, but I fight 2 of the mini bosses I found in the video on this, and you'll see them. They're like centaur things. Um, some ways I think they could have improved. Oh, actually, I'll just say this. The landscape has a lot of different climates and regions. You have Death Mountain, which is a volcanic area. The Gerudo Desert, which can be hot or cold depending on the time of day. Gerudo Highlands, which is like a snow area, which you actually find this cool little sword just mounted into the mountain. I wish there was a way. I don't really know any lore according to it, but it's just like a giant sword. I'll try to put a screenshot up on this video. But I found it randomly, and I don't know any lore behind it, but it's cool. I liked finding like cool gems in the landscape that are aesthetically pleasing to me. I don't know. I just thought it was cool. But I think some of the ways they could have improved is, though I liked the art style, the gouache on plein air, like saturated colors, wild lens. I found it to be less provoking emotionally. What I mean by that is when I played Ocarina of Time, there was, and Majora's Mask too. There was some times where I was actually I felt like a feeling like fear, and I remember specifically. It might be because I'm older, and I played Ocarina of Time when I was like a little kid, and same with Majora's Mask. But I remember Forest Temple was actually scary. The little hand that comes down from the ceiling, I actually feared for my life. And then when I had to like turn the lights off downstairs, and then run upstairs to go to bed, I was thinking about the little hand thing that grabs you and comes down. It was like shivering down my spine. But yeah, it created an atmosphere that was also terrifying to me, and it wasn't just terrifying. It's not just fear that I want to feel when I'm playing the game, but I don't know. It's just something about the art. You're not scared when you play it. The saturated colors give it a cartoony feel, and it's very obvious that this is more directed for kids. Actually, same with the water temple. I was kind of scared of the water temple too. Mostly the boss. The boss was a little scary. I would have liked an additional temple other than the divine beasts. Mostly because in Ocarina of Time there wasn't just fire, water, leaf temple. Oh man, I don't know if I think it was a grass temple. It's been a long time since I played it. There was a lot of temples and a lot of things to do main story wise. You have the three little spirit stones that you got, and then you had to get the three Triforces, and then you had to go with the, I think it was the Shadow Temple. There was a lot to Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. It also felt like there was a lot, although with the 3 day cycle system in Majora's Mask, it felt like they sort of made a little bit and then made it feel longer with the reset system, in my opinion. But anyway, I would have just liked to see an additional temple or more because the four divine beasts weren't enough. And then when you get to Hyrule Castle, there isn't any puzzle solving or anything. You can just kill guardians. But honestly, I read this Forbes article that sort of nailed it for me. And the writer Paul Tassi kind of he says he found the ending lacking, and it's not just with the last temple, but the last cutscene is really lacking, and it's nothing compared to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask endings. Majora's Mask ending was probably my favorite one, honestly, because I destroyed that game. I got all the masks, and I got the Fierce Deity mask. And it was just really rewarding being Fierce Deity Link and fighting Majora and stuff like that. But there was something that was really lacking in the ending. And for me, I know it could have been improved by just adding a temple at Hyrule Castle. It's too late now. I mean, if they just patch it or create a temple with DLC, I'll still think it's sort of just a wasted effort. I'm more trying to talk about the core game and the finished product as it is now. And going back and fixing that it's not like Mass Effect 3. You can't just, oh, it's cool now because you changed it. No, it's you messed it up the first time. But yeah, anyway, Paul Tassi just kind of talks about how yeah, it's stuff that I agree with. There isn't solvable puzzles. Endings lacking, and then killing guardians in Hyrule Castle is a waste. And you can just use Rivali's Gale to scale all the way up and fight Calamity Ganon, and you won't even need Rivali's Gale when you're fighting Ganon. You can just use stasis and stuff like that. I don't want to spoil too much. I am going to put like that there are some spoilers in the title so people don't watch it. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and get on to my conclusion. I've kind of talked a little bit too much. I can't believe this has already been 22 minutes. It feels like 10 minutes to me. Actually, I won't get into the controls. I'm going to talk about the controls just for a second. Overall, great. One thing that could be improved is with the champion abilities. I sometimes I didn't want to use Daruk's protection, which is the shield barrier you get from the Goron. It just activates when you have it readily available. There was times I just wanted to use my shield because Daruk's protection would have been a waste. I could have used it, fighting this mini boss, and it would have been better used more efficiently in that way. But now I have to wait for it to recharge. I didn't know this, but I looked online and you can actually disable them. But I would rather have it like mapped to more specific controls. I don't know. I actually don't have any suggestions for Nintendo for being able to improve that, but yeah, just something annoying I found. Overall, I'm going to get into the conclusion now. Amazing gameplay. I enjoyed the paraglider, exploration, bonus content for rewarding exploration, shield surfing, champion abilities, ability controls. Sheikah Slate was super fun. It's got great controls once you get used to them. I wasn't the quickest to adapt to the new controls. What else? It's got a good atmosphere. The art direction could take a page from Ocarina of Time. Mostly, what I mean by that, again, is just I just get better at trying to make me scared in some areas. A little bit of horror style art. Like the Forest Temple had, and a little bit of the creepiness Majora's Mask had could have benefited in certain sections of the game. Obviously, it's not a survival horror game, but you can still benefit. And then, yeah, the art lacks provoking of this kind of emotion. So that's my conclusion, and that's my review. Overall, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. just because the flaws I had with it were still pretty minor, and the gameplay was so amazing. It almost, unless you're really particular, you probably wouldn't even care. And people that are new to The Legend of Zelda won't have these memories from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask that I have, to kind of compare it with and see what they took away and what they added to the game. Um, so yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I talked for 25 minutes. I can't believe that. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the review. I'm gonna write another review soon. Look forward to that one. Goodbye and have a wonderful day.